Captain Elias Rourke had learned many kinds of tired in his life. There was the tiredness of long battles, when muscles burned and hands shook after holding a weapon for too many hours. There was the tiredness of sleepless nights on damaged ships, listening to alarms and distant explosions. And then there was the deepest kind, the tiredness that lived behind the eyes, heavy and quiet, the kind that never truly went away. That was the tiredness Elias carried as he walked through the central corridor of Keller Prime Space Station. The station was beautiful in an alien way. The walls curved like living metal, glowing softly with blue and gold light. Strange symbols flowed across transparent panels. Dozens of species moved through the corridor, tall, small, winged, scaled, and forms Elias did not even have words for. Voices echoed in many languages, some spoken, some clicked, some sung. Elias walked alone. He wore the dark uniform of Earth's fleet, marked with the symbol of humanity, a simple circle around a single star. To the galaxy, that symbol meant danger. Humans were known as survivors, soldiers, and stubborn fighters. Many feared them. Many blamed them. Few ever wondered how tired they were. Elias's boots felt heavy against the floor. His shoulders ached. Old scars pulled under his skin as if reminding him they were still there. He had been sent here as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, a role that sounded powerful but felt like standing in front of a firing line with words instead of armor. Do not fail, Earth Command had said. Do not provoke anyone. Do not show weakness. Elias kept his face calm, but inside he felt hollow as he passed a small gathering area. A sudden movement made him stop. An alien child stepped into his path. She was small, much smaller than most beings on the station. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, almost glowing. Large silver eyes looked up at him with open curiosity, not fear. Two thin antennae on her head twitched gently, reacting to his presence. The corridor seemed to go quiet. Elias stopped walking. Slowly, carefully, he looked down at her. She studied his face for a long moment, then spoke in a clear, gentle voice. You look as exhausted as my sister. Sir, the words hit him harder than any insult ever had. Elias froze. Around them, guards stiffened. Some aliens backed away in alarm. A few whispered. Humans were not usually spoken to so directly, especially not by a child. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. No one had said anything like that to him before. Not a commander, not a politician, not even his own people. They only ever said, "Good job," or "We need you again." Slowly, Elias knelt down so he was at the girl's level. Your sister? He asked quietly. The girl nodded. She works very hard. She protects many people, even when they shout at her, even when they blame her. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Elias swallowed. That sounds difficult. The girl smiled a little. She is tired too, but she keeps standing. Before Elias could say more, a tall alien woman hurried toward them. Her steps were fast, her expression alarmed. She wore elegant robes marked with the symbols of the Kailari Council. An authority clung to her like a second skin. My daughter, the woman said, pulling the girl gently back. She bowed deeply to Elias. I apologize, human captain. She did not mean to offend you. Elias shook his head at once. She didn't, he said softly. Not at all. The woman looked surprised. The girl peeked out from behind her sister's robes and waved. Don't be sad, sir, she said. My sister says tired people are usually the strongest. Something inside Elias broke open. He managed a small smile and gave a short nod. Thank you, he said. That means more than you know. As the two walked away, the girl turned once more and smiled brightly at him. Elias stood there long after they disappeared into the crowd. The station's noise returned. Life continued, but something had shifted, for the first time in years. Someone had not seen him as a weapon or a symbol or a threat. They had simply seen a tired man, and that moment's more unexpected and gentle was the first step toward a choice that would change Elias Rourke's fate, and perhaps the fate of humanity itself. That night, Captain Elias Rourke could not sleep. He lay on the small cot in his assigned chamber aboard Keller Prime, staring at the soft glow of alien lights outside the transparent wall. Stars scattered across the blackness like tiny, indifferent diamonds. On Earth, he would have been able to close his eyes and drift into the comfort of his home. Here, far away, sleep refused him. The words of the alien girl echoed in his mind. You look as exhausted as my sister, sir. They were simple words, too simple to carry the weight they now held. But Elias could feel their meaning deep inside him. Not a reminder of weakness, but a quiet recognition that someone else understood. A soft beep interrupted his thoughts. His console lit up with a priority message. Elias sat up, rubbing his eyes, and activated it. From Ambassador Lyra Keth Species, Keller Priority. Hi. Elias knew the name. Lyra, Ketha, sister the girl had mentioned. Powerful, respected, and feared in equal measure. And yet, there was exhaustion beneath her reputation, something almost human in its vulnerability. The door to his chamber opened moments later. Lyra entered, moving with quiet authority. She was tall, elegant, her pale blue skin shimmering slightly in the chamber's light. But the glow in her silver eyes was different from her daughter's, carried the weight of responsibility, sleepless nights, and unending duty. My sister spoke to you today, Lyra said, her voice calm but serious. She was kind, Elias replied. Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him. She rarely notices strangers, especially humans. She is protective, careful, and yet observant. And she noticed something in you. Elias felt a tightness in his chest. He did not know what to say. Humans often feared the galaxy, fought wars, or negotiated deals. But no one had ever looked at him the way the girl had. No one had ever seen him, the tired, broken, human man behind the uniform and medals. I have been carrying too much, Elias admitted, his voice low. Too many battles, too many losses. I speak for Earth, but I feel exhausted. And alone, Lyra remained silent. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She waited. When he finished, she said softly, almost as if confessing, "You sound like me." Elias blinked. She explained. The Kalari were under threat. A powerful coalition of alien races demanded their territory and resources. Their leaders sought to strip Lyra's people of autonomy. For years, she had fought to protect her people alone, under pressure, carrying the weight of an entire species. Now, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, they want Earth to support them. They want your fleet, your allegiance. And if you refuse, she left the words unspoken, but the meaning was clear. Humanity could be dragged into a war they did not want. Elias leaned back, closing his eyes. He thought of Earth, of soldiers who never came home, of families waiting in vain. He thought of humanity's stubborn desire to survive, to fight, and to protect even when it cost everything. Lyra studied him, her expression softening. I see it in youth, the same exhaustion, the same determination. But you are human. You carry it differently. You have the chance to choose how far you will stand, and whether you will bend or break. Elias opened his eyes. He wanted to speak, but no words came. For the first time in years, he felt that someone understood. Someone across the galaxy, of a species so different, could still recognize the weight he carried. A silence fell between them, heavy yet comforting. Lyra finally stepped closer and laid a hand on his shoulder. Human gesture she had learned from observation. You are not alone, Elias roared. Even in the galaxy, even in the council, even when others doubt you, you are not alone. Elias nodded slowly, feeling warmth spread through his chest. A flicker of hope, small but insistent, broke through the exhaustion that had clouded him for years. That night, for the first time in a long while, he slept, and in that sleep, a quiet understanding took root. The galaxy would test him, challenge him, and demand more than he thought he could give. But he had been seen. He had been recognized. And that recognition, the simple truth that someone noticed his burden, was the first spark that could ignite change. He did not yet know how. He did not yet know the cost. But he knew this: he would not stand alone and far away. On the other side of Keller Prime, a small alien girl smiled. Unaware of the storm, her words had already begun to stir. The next day, Captain Elias Rourke stepped into the Galactic Council chamber, and the weight of the galaxy pressed down on him. The chamber was enormous. Unlike any place on Earth, the floor glowed with shifting patterns of light, and platforms floated in mid-air, carrying delegates from dozens of worlds. Strange shapes filled the room, aliens with wings, tentacles, scales, and eyes that glimmered like jewels. They spoke in languages Elias could not even begin to understand. Yet somehow he knew the tension in their voices. Elias stood alone on the human platform, his boots echoing on the metallic floor. He felt small, isolated, and exposed. Earth was far away, and here the galaxy watched every move, every word. The coalition of species that threatened the Kailari had arrived in full force. They carried with them wealth, weapons, and arrogance, and they expected humanity to choose. Humans are warriors, shouted one alien delegate with horns curling from its head. Its voice was harsh, almost grating. You have no place in peace. Your people bring chaos wherever they go. As the human fleet moved, a small Kailari transport vessel drifted into danger. A coalition warship targeted it, weapons glowing with lethal energy. Elias's voice rang out. Divert shields. Protect them at all costs. The fleet shifted. Shields flared, intercepting the blasts. Kailari civilians aboard the transport gasped, safe for now, because humans refused to break. Elias remembered the words of the alien girl. Tired people are usually the strongest, and he felt their truth in every maneuver, every sacrifice his fleet made. Humans were tired, exhausted by wars and loss, but their determination refused to bend. Hours passed. The coalition's attacks were relentless. Their fleet far larger, their weapons deadly. But humans moved like a single organism, every captain, every pilot, every soldier understanding the stakes. They fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for life, for protection. For honor, Elias watched as a small human fighter intercepted an enemy missile, exploding in a dazzling burst to save a Kailari shuttle below. Another squadron drew the fire away from a civilian colony, their shields holding against impossible odds. He realized then that strength was not measured in numbers, size, or firepower. It was measured in courage, in choice, in the willingness to stand between danger and the innocent. Even when exhaustion screamed to turn away, hours turned into a day. The coalition had expected humanity to bend under pressure, to withdraw, to negotiate out of fear. They had not counted on humans refusing to break. And slowly, ever so slowly, the tide began to turn. Coalition ships faltered. Their formations wavered. Confusion spread. They had assumed fear, but they faced resolver, calm, steady. Unyielding resolve that struck deeper than any weapon, Elias sent a message to all frequencies, his voice carrying across the battlefield. We are tired. We are exhausted, but we are still here. We stand, and we will not let life be destroyed while we watch. The message spread. Small allies, inspired by humanity's courage, joined in. Coalition morale faltered. Ships retreated. Their arrogance had not prepared them for the power of a species that refused to abandon others, no matter the cost. When the battle ended, silence returned to the Kailari system. Stars shone once more, unbroken by the chaos of war. Human ships floated among Kailari vessels, battered but unbowed. Elias stood on the command deck, exhaustion pulling at him, but pride swelling even stronger. The galaxy had tested humanity and they had not only survived, they had protected the innocent. They had inspired allies. They had changed the story, and somewhere in a quiet corner of Keller Prime, a small blue girl looked at the stars and smiled, unaware that the words she had spoken days ago, so simple, so small, had begun a chain reaction strong enough to defy entire fleets. Because sometimes courage is not about victory. It is about standing, protecting, and refusing to break even when the universe is against you. The battle was over. The stars outside Keller Prime shimmered quietly, as if nothing had happened. Yet Elias Rourke knew better. The system had been scarred. Ships were damaged. Lives had been lost. The weight of it pressed on him, heavier than any weapon. Elias walked through the corridors of the station, boots echoing softly on the metal floors. The smell of smoke from the battle still lingered, mixed with the alien scent of Kalari metals and strange flowers in suspended gardens. It was quiet now, almost peaceful, but Elias could feel the tension that hung in the air, the unspoken relief of survival, and the unspoken fear of what might come next. And then he saw her, the small blue girl. She ran toward him with the energy and excitement only a child could have after days of fear. Her silver eyes sparkled like twin moons, and her antennae twitched eagerly. Behind her, the tall figure of her sister, Lyra, followed with measured steps, her expression softer than usual. She had been exhausted, but now she carried a quiet pride, the kind earned only through survival and courage. "You look less tired," the girl said, her voice filled with genuine happiness. Elias smiled. A real smile this time, one that reached his eyes. "Because someone reminded me why I should keep standing," he said gently. The girl's smile widened, and she reached up to touch his arm. "I told you, sir. Tired people are the strongest." Lyra placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder and then looked at Elias. Her silver eyes, once heavy with the burden of command, now held respect and gratitude. "You changed everything," she said softly. "Your people stood with us when no one else would. You fought not for glory, but for life. That is something the galaxy will remember." Elias shook his head slowly, humbled. "No. You reminded me who we are. Humanity is tired, yes. But when we see someone else suffering, we do not turn away. We stand, we protect. We fight, even when we are exhausted." For a moment, the corridor was silent except for the faint hum of the station. Elias thought of every choice, every risk, every ship that had been damaged, every life that had been protected. It had been worth it. Every exhaustion, every scar, every sleepless night worth it for moments like this. The small girl looked up at him with awe. "Will humans always help, sir?" Elias crouched down to her level, his tired eyes softening. "We try our best, even when it is hard, even when we are tired. That is who we are." Lyra smiled faintly, a rare expression of warmth and relief. And now the galaxy has seen it too. They have seen the truth of humanity, not just as warriors or survivors, but as protectors, as beings who stand when others falter. Elias straightened, taking a deep breath. He could feel the exhaustion of the last weeks pressing on him again, but it no longer felt unbearable. He had been tested. He had been seen, and he had acted. The small girl tugged at his sleeve. "Can you stay?" Elias laughed softly, a sound that had been rare for years. "I will stay as long as I am needed." And in that moment, something shifted. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had finally felt the weight of human courage, not in numbers, not in firepower, but in the willingness to stand for what was right. Lyra's hand rested lightly on Elias's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of shared struggle. "We will rebuild," she said, "together. Humans and Kalari, side by side." Elias nodded, feeling something he had not felt in years. Belonging, connection, purpose beyond mere survival. The girl smiled again, her eyes shining like starlight. "I think my sister would be proud of you." Elias's chest tightened with emotion. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel relief, hope, and quiet joy. He had been recognized. He had been trusted. And he had fought not for conquest, not for power, but for life, for honor, and for the fragile hope that even the smallest voice a child's observation could spark something greater than war. As the sun, or what passed for it, on Keller Prime rose slowly over the horizon, Elias Rourke looked out at the stars. He saw the future, uncertain but promising. Humanity had stood tall. Humanity had made a choice. And sometimes that choice alone was enough to change everything. And somewhere, in the quiet of the station, a small blue girl and her exhausted but brave sister smiled at a human who had become more than a captain. He had become a symbol of what humanity truly could be. The galaxy had changed, though not everyone realized it yet. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the observation deck of the Kellari Central Station, looking out at the endless stars. Ships of many species moved peacefully now, some carrying supplies, others carrying ambassadors. The hum of engines and the soft glimmer of lights gave a sense of life returning after chaos. The coalition had retreated. The Kailari were safe, for now, and humanity had proven something more important than power. They had proven that courage and honor could shape the course of worlds. Elias thought back to the first moment he had met the small blue girl. How her simple words, "You look as exhausted as my sister, sir," had pierced through the armor of a lifetime of battles. Those words had reminded him that exhaustion was not weakness, that seeing the pain and struggle in others was sometimes the strongest form of strength. He walked through the corridors again, and there she was, running toward him as usual, her silver eyes bright with mischief and joy. Behind her, Lyra followed, her tall frame carrying the quiet weight of responsibility, but lighter now, softened by relief. "You did it," the girl said simply, tugging at his sleeve. "You kept standing." Elias smiled, crouching to meet her gaze. "No, we kept standing. Humanity kept standing. And you reminded us why." Lyra came closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her eyes, still tired, shone with respect and gratitude. "You have shown the galaxy what humans truly are, Elias. Not the strongest, not the most powerful, not the fastest, but the ones who see exhaustion in others and refuse to walk away. That is something no weapon can match." Elias felt the weight of all the battles, all the sleepless nights, all the choices finally shift into something warm. Pride, not arrogance. Courage, not recklessness. Recognition, not isolation. The small girl looked up at him. "Will humans always help, sir?" Ilias's voice was soft, steady, and full of quiet conviction. "We try, even when we are tired, even when it is hard, because sometimes standing beside someone else is the strongest thing we can do." Lyra nodded. "And the galaxy will remember it. The stories of today will be told for generations, of humans who chose honor over fear, humans who refuse to abandon those in need. That is the legacy of your people." Elias looked at the stars, imagining Earth far away. He thought of all those who had fought, all those who had waited, all those. Another hissed, "Earth should stay silent. Support the Kailari, and we will cut your trade, destroy your colonies." Elias felt the old, familiar tension in his chest, the urge to fight, the pull of fear, the quiet whisper of responsibility. But this was not a battlefield of blasters and explosions. This was a battlefield of words, of choices, of moral courage. He remembered the girl, her silver eyes, her small voice. "You look as exhausted as my sister, sir." He remembered Lyra's tired eyes, her weight of responsibility, her quiet courage, and he thought of Earth, the people who had survived impossible odds, the soldiers who had returned home battered and broken, the families who had rebuilt their lives from nothing. Humanity was tired. Humanity had been pushed to the edge again and again, but humanity had never given up. Elias raised his hand. The room fell into sudden, heavy silence. "I request permission to speak," he said, his voice steady, carrying through the enormous chamber. Every eye turned to him. Even the coalition delegates leaned forward, curious, mocking, waiting for a human to falter. When the room quieted, he spoke. "Humanity is tired of surviving by abandoning others." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Delegates blinked. Some whispered. Some froze, unsure of what to do. He continued, voice firm, unwavering. "We know exhaustion. We know sacrifice. We know fear. But we also know responsibility. We have fought wars where survival meant leaving friends behind. We have watched planets burn while we struggled to protect the innocent. And we recognize it in others." A horned delegate sneered. "You are alone, human. You cannot fight the galaxy. You will break under the weight of choice. Elias straightened his back. He thought of Earth again, of the soldiers, of the children waiting for peace, of the Kailari people whose lives were on the line. No, he said quietly, yet every word rang like a hammer striking metal. We bend, yes, but we do not break. Not when justice calls. Not when life calls. Not when the innocent call. A silence followed that was heavier than any insult, sharper than any weapon. The coalition had expected fear. They had expected weakness. They had expected humans to hesitate, to negotiate, to compromise. But Elias did not hesitate. Around him, other delegates shifted uncomfortably. Small species that had suffered under the coalition's greed looked at him with hope. Some nodded quietly. One by one, the murmurs grew into whispers of agreement. The energy in the room changed. Humanity's choice, so small yet so resolute, had shaken the arrogance of the powerful. Elias finished speaking, taking a slow breath. He could feel the exhaustion pressing against his chest, the memories of wars and losses weighing him down, but also a strange lightness. The galaxy had heard him. Someone had finally heard him, and he knew, standing alone on that floating platform in the middle of a million eyes, that the path forward would not be easy. The coalition would not forgive him. Humanity would be tested. Kailari would need every ally they could find, but for the first time in years, Elias felt something he had not felt in a long time: clarity, somewhere far away. A small alien girl's words had reminded him why humans keep fighting. Why humans, tired or broken, stand again. Because sometimes standing is all it takes. Elias looked around the chamber one last time, meeting Lyra's eyes across the floor. She nodded once, silently. Exhaustion, responsibility, and courage shone in her gaze. They were not alone in this fight, and with that understanding, a quiet fire ignited inside Elias Rourke. The battle of words had begun. The battle of fates was about to unfold, and the galaxy, whether it knew it or not, would feel the strength of humanity. The message from Earth Command arrived while Captain Elias Rourke sat alone in the quiet of his quarters. Do not escalate. Protect Earth first. The words were short, precise, and heavy with unspoken consequences. Protect Earth. Stay out of other races' conflicts. Choose safety over morality. Choose survival over honor. Elias stared at the console, feeling a familiar ache press into his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to obey. Earth's colonies were fragile, their fleet stretched thin. One wrong move could spark a war humanity was not ready to fight, and yet he could not forget the alien girl's words, nor Lyra's tired eyes. He could not forget the Kailari people, counting on the Council to see the truth. For the first time in his life, Elias understood the weight of choice, not just any choice, but the kind that defined a man, a species, a future. He remembered his father's words from long ago, after a war that had taken everything from him. If protecting yourself means becoming something you hate, what are you really protecting? Elias clenched his fists. He had lived by rules, by orders, by careful calculation. He had survived battles where honor was optional. He had learned to bend to survive. But now, bending meant abandoning someone who had already given everything for their people. Bending meant ignoring justice. Bending meant watching life and hope crumble while hiding behind safety. He could not do it, not this time. He activated the communications console and began typing. Each keystroke carried more than words. It carried the weight of humanity's spirit. The message was simple, clear, and unyielding. Earth will stand with the Kalari. His hands hovered over the final key. He knew what it meant. Sanctions, threats, isolation. The coalition would not forgive defiance. Entire trade networks could collapse. Human colonies could be in danger. And yet, he pressed send. The console beeped confirmation. The decision had been made. The next day, the consequences began. Alien communications erupted across the station. Trade sanctions were announced. Threats of fleet blockades echoed in the council chambers. Some humans whispered fearfully, unsure if their captain had made a mistake. The coalition believed they had broken humanity, and then something unexpected happened. Other species began speaking up, quietly at first, almost tentatively. Small worlds, broken worlds, species that had known human kindness over the centuries, aid when their ships were stranded, food when their colonies struggled, medicine when their people fell ill. They began to support humanity's choice. They would stand beside the Kalari. Elias watched the ripple grow, silent and steady. Every species that had been helped by humans, every life humanity had touched in years of struggle, began to emerge as an ally. He remembered the alien girl, smiling at him, unaware of the storm her words had stirred. He thought of Lyra, standing tirelessly for her people, and he felt the quiet pride of knowing that courage could inspire courage in return. The choice had been made. And in making it, Elias Rourke had reminded the galaxy what humanity truly was: not the strongest, not the richest, not the most advanced, but a species that recognized exhaustion, sacrifice, and pain in others, and chose to act anyway. He took a deep breath and allowed himself a rare moment of relief. For now, the path was dangerous, uncertain, and full of enemies. But humanity had chosen honor over fear. And sometimes that choice was the most powerful weapon of all. In the quiet of the chamber, as the stars of Keller Prime shimmered outside, Elias felt something he had not felt in years: hope. The galaxy would test them. The coalition would retaliate. But for the first time, he knew humanity's strength was more than ships, weapons, or numbers. It was the refusal to stand aside when others suffered, and in that refusal, a small spark had begun to grow. Elias stood tall, shoulders straight, eyes clear. He was exhausted, yes. His species was tested, yes. But he had chosen, and sometimes a choice was stronger than any fleet far away. In a quiet corner of the station, a small blue girl and her tired sister watched the stars, unknowingly smiling at the courage they had inspired. Because sometimes, seeing someone's exhaustion was the first step toward changing the fate of many. The first attack came without warning. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the command deck of the Earth flagship, staring out at the void of space. Stars twinkled coldly beyond the reinforced glass, but they could not hide the incoming danger. The coalition fleet had arrived. Massive warships, bristling with weapons, moved like predators through Kalari space. Their intent was clear: strike first, crush the defenders, and force Earth and the Kalari into submission. Elias's hands rested lightly on the console, but his mind was sharp and precise. Years of battle had taught him that fear was not the enemy. Hesitation was. Every choice now carried the weight of life's Kalari, humans, and even the small species counting on him silently. "Status report," he said, his voice calm, though tension wrapped around every word. "Enemy fleet approaching from multiple vectors." "Sir," replied Lieutenant Mara, her hands flying over holographic controls. Their shields are strong, and weapons are already charging. Ilyas nodded. Hold formation. Protect the civilians. No ship falls without saving someone aboard. The first volley of energy struck the human ships. The shields glowed, flickered, and held. Sparks flew across consoles. Alarms blared, but the fleet did not falter. Elias moved with quiet authority, giving commands that were precise, measured, and unafraid. Keep the Kalari worlds in the center. Draw them out if needed. Target their engines first. We defend, not conquer. The battle had begun, and it was not the kind humanity usually fought. There were no front lines marked in dirt or fire. This was a war of movement, of strategy, of protecting life while destroying the tools of destruction.